In which case, I think I will wrap it up and ask each of the speakers to give us up to 2 minutes of concluding remarks. Dominic?
I see myself, and have always seen myself, as a patriotic Briton. I wouldn't exchange this country for anywhere else in the world if I were offered millions of pounds to tempt me. I have no desire for it, and I want the best for the country I live in. And I'm conscious that the country in which I live is in a difficult and dangerous world, and that its historic tradition for dealing with that has always been to make agreements with others for the common good. Absolutely underpins British foreign policy for the last 200 years. And the EU is part of that. And far from being unsuccessful, if it's judged over its entire period and of our participation in it, strikes me that despite the challenges it faces at the moment, it has in many respects been markedly successful in achieving our foreign policy goals. And that is what I am now being asked, in the choice I have to make, to rip up and to replace it with something which is entirely intangible and is dependent on a whole series of factors to work. When I go and worship on a Sunday, I am asked, I think in one of the prayers, that we should be godly and quietly governed. I've always understood the quiet government to be something that we should all aspire to. I do not see how we are going to have quiet government if we vote on the 23rd of June to leave, because I will think it will precipitate a political and actually financial and economic crisis that will be long-lasting for our country. Seems to me it's the height of irresponsibility for me as a politician to argue for such an outcome, particularly when it, of course, will be the most vulnerable in our society who will pay the heaviest price for the politician's vision. And that's why I think that the cooperation with our neighbours, which we have engaged upon and which we can continue upon, is the single most valuable contribution we can make to the well-being of our fellow citizens.
Thank you, Lord Howe.
None of the other treaties into which we've entered over the centuries have involved the surrender of our self-government in the way in which our membership of the European Union does. And I return to the central point because we haven't really had any answer to it from the other side. We haven't had any refutation of the fact that our Parliament is subordinate to the European Court of Justice and the Commission, and that it can pass acts of Parliament which can be struck down by that court. None of the other treaties we've ever entered into over the centuries has involved giving up that basic right of self-government. Now, Joanna's got quite a consistent position. She doesn't care about that. She's very happy with this supranational kind of body which has ultimate control. I don't think Dominic is happy with it, but he hasn't really given an answer. And if you want to know in one sentence what the attitude of the European Union is to these matters, it was summed up in something that the President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said just a few weeks ago. He urged the heads of government of the member states of the European Union to pay less attention to their electorates and more attention to the European project. That says it all.
Thank you. Joanna.
The Leave campaign can't tell you what the United Kingdom would look like out with the European Union because they haven't applied their mind properly to that. When they're asking you to take such a momentous decision as to leave a union in which we are so intertwined and which has brought such significant benefits to our island union of nations, then it's really incumbent upon them to offer some sort of blueprint or some sort of detail on, as the last questioner asked us, what model they favour for a United Kingdom out with the European Union. And they're just not able to do that. They haven't even attempted to do it you will search in vain for any booklet or blueprint or detail on what they see as the alternative to European Union membership. Lord Howard has fallen into the trap this evening of suggesting that we would be like Norway or Switzerland. But one of the main reasons held up by the Leave campaign for leaving the European Union is because of free movement of people and the perceived threat of migration into the United Kingdom. But of course, as most of you in the room will know, countries like Norway or Switzerland, who are signed up to the European Economic Area, or EFTA, have to accept a significant degree of free movement in order to be so signed up. And so in order to get the free trade that they want, they have to accept the very thing that you're being told we won't have to put up with any longer if we leave the European Union. That's the sort of fluffy, woolly, irresponsible thinking that's going on the part of the Leave campaign. Lord Howard also said that we would have he said we would have a very British Britain, and we'd have a British way of government. But you'll not be surprised to hear that I, as a Scottish nationalist, question whether there is a British way. We've been talking about sovereignty a lot in Parliament recently, and I've had cause to remind my colleagues from other nations in the United Kingdom that the notion of the sovereignty of Parliament is a very English doctrine, and that in Scotland we believe in the sovereignty of the people. So again, if we're going to get this sovereignty back, what is the notion of British sovereignty? It's different, and there are tensions within our own union. But the most important thing I would say to you tonight, it is incumbent upon anyone advocating major economic and social change to give you some detail on what lies on the other side of that leap in the dark. I know that because I was part of the Yes campaign in Scotland. We tried to do that. We had a huge white paper. We at least tried to address the issue. The Leave campaign have done nothing like that. Their campaign is irresponsible. What they are asking you to do is irresponsible. They haven't done the detail, they haven't done the work, so you shouldn't put your trust in them.
Thank you, Joanna. Martin.
Well, if, and I hope it doesn't happen, this country votes to remain on the 23rd of June, I think that will be one of the most depressing votes of this century, because it will solve absolutely nothing. We will still be inside the European Union, it will still not be reformed, it will still carry on expanding the scope of European Union law, it will carry on overriding our Parliament and our democracy, and in wider and wider fields, making it impossible for our citizens to vote for elected representatives who can deliver the policies and principles that they want. But I want a positive result on the 23rd of June. I want a result which gives us freedom. Now, Dominic has mocked it and said it's intangible. Well, actually, freedom and the right to govern yourself is, I suppose, intangible, because it doesn't dictate what you will do with that freedom and that right. You as a country, or we as a country, may use it well, or we may not use it well, but it will be our decision and our exercise of our freedoms. I would also totally reject Joanna's suggestion that those on the Leave side have not thought very carefully and very deeply about what happens to this country after we leave the European Union. We can see, for example, the work done by Patrick Minford and his colleagues in the Economist Group for Brexit, which clearly set out a strong and clear vision of a country that trades with the world, that is no longer held back by our membership of this very, very restrictive and protectionist body that interferes with our ability to prosper by trading with other countries and forces us to pay money to them every year for the privilege as well. So what I look forward to is a much brighter future for this country a new beginning if we vote leave on the 23rd of June.
Thank you. Now, the all-important time for voting. You should have in front of you or on your seat 2 ballots, an orange out and a green in. And if I could ask you all to vote on the question, should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union, simply by passing the appropriate coloured sheet towards the outside of your row now, and the votes will be collected outside towards the wall that way and towards the wall this way. Only one, I've been asked by the front row, who seem enthusiastic. Please join me in thanking all our 4 speakers. Thank you, and please join us for a drink to continue the lively debate.